Hi, everyone. Welcome to DENEHY Club Thinking Partners video series titled Club Chats. I'm Dan DENEHY. Club Thinking Partners is an executive search and management consulting firm serving the private club and boutique resort industries. Through our Club Chat series, we will be speaking with club industry professionals and thought leaders across all areas of our industry. Culinary talent, golf course superintendents, club presidents, general managers, golf professionals, and other important voices that you will indeed find interesting. For today's chat, we're thrilled to have two of the country's leading executive chefs. Both, frankly, are world-level certified master chefs, of which there are currently only 72. These guys are the best of the best. Please welcome Rob Mancuso, executive chef at the Bohemian Club in San Francisco, a good friend, and Ed Leonard as well, another good friend who is the director of culinary operations at the Polo Club in Boca Raton. Our mission at Club Thinking Partners is to be just that, a thinking partner to our clients, candidates, and friends. We believe that thinking together, hearing each other's perspectives, approaches, and ideas, opinions will lead to the best possible business decision and outcome. With that said, I turn this over to Bob James, Vice President of Club Thinking Partners, who will lead this chat. Over to you, Bob.
Thank you, Rob and Ed, for being with us this morning. These two gentlemen, as Dan mentioned, are master chefs. They're world renowned. They can give us, I believe, two completely different perspectives. Rob is out on the West Coast in a large city club, and we've got Ed Leonard down in the Boca area at the Boca Polo Club. A very large country club, 1,700 members, I believe. And so what I'd like to do is start off by asking Ed to give us a little bit of perspective. They've already been closed, and in fact, I guess they're looking now towards when their reopen date might be, but that could be some time. So, Ed, can you tell us really what you've done so far, and how's that working out for you?
Yeah, how you doing, James? Yeah, we've had some, as you said, the clubs all vary based on geographic and perspectives. For us, with 1,704 houses in a gated community, we had to really think a lot differently of how we can serve the members, because it's almost like a captured audience. And then with the fear of the disease, people not wanting to leave the gates of the club kind of looked at this as their safe haven. So we set up shop immediately when everything started coming out. We started knowing that closures were going to happen and limited space. We set up two of our restaurants for valet service, pickup service, and basically featured two of the menus and did everything dinners to go, almost like a regular service, but instead of putting everything on China and having the waiters, we were boxing everything, packaging everything. Whole team would run it up to the upper valet, and we had the curbside pickup, very limited member contact. If any windows would be down, bags in the either the trunk or the front seat. And then we decided as well, with the shortages of food in the markets and some of the problems members had getting product, we opened up a marketplace as well. So we felt a strong obligation that we still had to serve. With 3,300 members total in the club, we actually have about 75% that are on property, because many of them didn't want to travel back to New York because, of course, what was going on there. So we've had some incredible business. To my surprise, we have nights of doing 500-600 dinners. Everything, of course, being boxed and packaged, a whole different operation than we're used to. And the marketplace, from the first day, I think we did over 240 deliveries to the different complexes to deliver goods and services. So again, we felt it as an obligation to our members to provide a service and get people together to team up and work and still keep the club operating as best to our ability.
It's quite some operation. I know. I hopefully will be able to put some pictures up on the screen of what you've done as well. And so Rob, out in San Francisco, you too were amongst the first of really the closed down operations. I know that you closed the operation down completely. Can you tell us a little bit of what you're seeing out on the West Coast, and specifically maybe what your colleagues in city clubs, how is that different than maybe what the country clubs are doing?
Yeah, a totally different perspective in the large metro area, San Francisco. I believe being one of the first major cities to go under shelter in place, we have a totally different dynamic out here. So we were a little bit ahead of the curve. One of our members happened to be past director for the Institute of Global Health. And he was able to provide some very important information to us and get us ahead of the curve. And as you know, with a lot of clubs, the demographic there falls in a high-risk category. So our board made a decision to close earlier than the city put shelter in place, which I thought was a great decision. Many other clubs decided to stay open, offer some extended dining until the city mandated shelter in place. and you know, from that point forward, the city shut down, slowly transitioning. I'm not in the city currently, but I have been up to the club a few times, and San Francisco is a ghost town. You would be very surprised.
So Rob, you must be starting to think about reopening. I understand now 6 states have reopened, and you're being one of the first states to close down. It must be coming pretty soon. What kind of planning are you doing to reboot, to ramp up? What did you do with your staff, and how are you going to bring them back?
Yeah, these are some of the larger challenges here that we're all faced with. A lot of the management team is working from home, putting together plans for their own departments. As far as shutdown, we shut down the club every year in the summer as we open up for a summer seasonal operation. So we did a lot of similar things that we would have done then, shut down a lot of non-essential utilities and shut down refrigeration, stored food the best that we could, opened up a little market to our team, whatever was perishable in the club, get them to go ahead and take that home, and then just keep it organized so when the time for reopening comes, we know what we're going to do with the facility. So that wasn't as much of a challenge for us as I think the reopening will be staff. I think will be the biggest concern for us. Furloughed most of our employees, as many people did, some with complete layoffs. You know, there's a different dynamic in so many different parts of the country right now. California offers a stimulus package along with unemployment, so that benefits our employees. We're looking, hopefully, for the culinary team at a high percentage of return. And I think a lot of people are doing that because where else is anybody going to go unless they're looking at switching careers completely? They got to come back home. So we're looking to that. And what we've been doing is we've been communicating directly with our hourly staff by phone, by text, calling in, checking in, letting them know that we're here for them when we're ready to reopen. So staffing is one of the biggest concerns. There are many other concerns that are going to revolve around our reopening, how members are out in the club or anticipating member usage as we reopen. That could be one of the largest concerns for us. So we will softly transition into reopening. Culture at our club is quite different from a lot of other city clubs, so there's a different dynamic there. But we have to look at still controlling our costs, our operational costs. So we'll probably end up going into a limited menu, limited service, slowly transitioning our administration staff back into the club. Things like social distancing is going to be a huge consideration for us, whether we spread the tables to be determined, but yet we're putting together a plan that encompasses all of those thoughts and all of those concerns, whether or not we'll allow members into one area, the club up whole. We have a library, we have a bar, we have a lounge, we have a foyer. There's a lot of different areas. We will probably enhance our cleaning and house department, traffic areas, make sure that they're clean and sanitary. When it comes to the culinary department, of course, masks will be mandatory. If there is a vaccine, vaccination cards, identification cards may be something that we'll look to receive and document and record. But there's a lot of different things, as you know, in that area for reopening and anticipating. So there's a lot of things that we're probably not anticipating. We're going to try to do our best to encompass it all.
Well, certainly look to DENEHY CTP for some of those ideas on how to get yourself back on. Couldn't help but give a plug, Dan. Chef, it sounds like you're almost operating in full, but I know that you were going from 5 dining rooms or so down to 2 different types of takeout service. Could you just tell us what kind of reductions you've made, I'm sure, to try and mitigate the extra costs? So aside the labor-wise, what percentage of your normal labor force do you have, and other maybe cost-cutting measures that you've made and or plan to make for the future?
We have been very fortunate because of the business levels. So the culinary team has pretty much been fully employed. We're doing the numbers, we're doing the work. Where we've had to, I guess, had some luck is, the Florida clubs run a lot on international staff. So a lot of them, we were finally able to get them safely home a week ago. Some left prior to that. So that reduction in workforce happened organically because most of them would have left between the mid-April to early May timeframe. So that helped us quite a bit, though we still have a few people that can't get home because their countries are locked down. But we have been fortunate to keep everybody busy. The problem now is reopening. What are the plans? Where are we going to go? With this facility, and like you said, the dining room, the pool area, the card room especially. The card rooms are bigger than most clubs' dining rooms. And how are we going to handle that? So we're looking at 3 phases. The first one possibly being May to the end of June, kind of the soft opening, taking tables out of the dining room, having restricted reservations. We're probably going to go to a seating. We're probably still going to have to offer a to-go program because with the limited seating and social distancing, people aren't all going to be able to come even when we open 2 of the dining rooms. So we're still going to provide food for pickup. And then we're looking at the July to September timeframe. Where's the country then? How this is working out. It's usually our slower time too. The season usually dies, really slows down July and August, but there's a part of us that think too, with the uncertainty of the world and everything going on, that most people might stay here, want to enjoy the club. So how do we handle that? How do we control, those kind of things? We're also in the middle of budget season. Our fiscal runs from October to September. So we've started budgets, and yet we're looking at maybe a 3-phase budget, normal, in between, and then what if this thing arises again? They're expecting it in winter. What does that do to our key season? I mean, holiday week for me, for example, those 9 days I put through 35,000 people. Is there a chance of that actually happening this year? If anything, does happen, how do you even control crowds for those kind of things? We do a magic show that's 600 people. So we have a lot of challenges in front of us. And then, like Rob said, you don't know. And we're trying to dot every I, cross every T, the unexpected, the expected, but I'm sure there's things that are going to hit us. The club financially now is having meetings all this week with the board to decide where we go from here because it's gone on longer than we thought. I am a little stressed from the culinary team now because, lunch has slowed down since we've opened the marketplace. It's kind of taken away from the lunch business. So even though we have everybody employed, we're looking at hours, but I think many of them have been very blessed that we're in the environment we're in, that we have this captive audience that wants to be safe. It really has created an opportunity, which, my heart goes out, as I wrote in the article, Club Resort Business, that so many of my friends up north have had challenges and had to furlough staff, and clubs don't even know if they're opening yet. So we're just in a very different position, but where we go from here, honestly, is a lot of complexity. We're going to try to break it down into phases, but there's no solid answers. As much think tanks as we're going to have, put all the heads together, we're going to prepare for 3 different scenarios and try to have everything together so we don't react, and we're still ahead of the game and pro-reactive. But I think crowd control and where we go from here, and should it pop back up again in the fall and winter, it could be a real challenge for us. And then the international, just if I take 5 clubs off the top of my head around here with us, probably 600 to 700 internationals are bought in just for front of the house service. If you bring them in, you're responsible for them, and yet if things don't go back to normal, or should there be an outbreak, what do you do with so many people here? And if you chance not bringing them here, things go to normal, then you don't have the service capability. So we might have to look at reduction. And we have 5 full service restaurants, as you said. We have 3 other dining venues, we might have to look at reduction and just having control points in all those. So it's a very complex time. In fact, probably even more difficult going forward than I think it's been the past 2 months.
I know that Ed and the size club that he's running and the nature of that business, they do a lot of buffets, salad bars, things of that nature. And I'll get back to that, ask Ed specifically what he's doing about those. But do you have large events generally in your main club there that have to do buffets and do salad bars and that sort of thing? Or is that not necessarily your food culture there?
Yeah, no, that we do a number of different buffets. This has been a concern for us, a topic of discussion on how to move forward with some of our standard operating procedures. We do a lot of sit-down plated meals, and we can do them up to 650 is kind of our max at the club. Controlling those crowds, I think, going forward is hasn't been decided yet, but it's another hot topic on how we're going to control those crowds. Just like Ed had mentioned down there, he does some large events, his magic show for 600. How do you control these crowds? How do you keep social distancing if this virus is to continue or rebirth in the fall? And we're hoping that it's on a downward swing right now. With buffets, I think what were probably my recommendations are going to be, and I would hope the recommendations of a lot of chefs across the country and the world, are to reduce as much contact to food service products as possible. So the CDC says that you can't really contract the virus through food products. So that's on. But what we're challenged with is food packaging and food serviceware. So we're trying to look at how we're going to control that from what I call my 5-step plan at the club. So from purchasing through receiving, through the preparation, the cooking, and the serving of food, all of those 5 steps have to be controlled in some way. We have to at least have some considerations on how we're going to manage each of them. And when it comes to the service, we need to really take a hard look at self-service, especially with buffets, and create something that is maybe something that is set up for a chef attendant to serve our members. So it's only one gloved hand or one clean, sanitized hand handling utensils and serving food that way, similar to a carving station, if you think of it like that. And when it comes to hot food buffets, we may have to increase our staffing to create action stations if we're going to continue with that style of service.
Thanks. And Ed, you've got some big challenges because I think your luncheon buffets are colossal. So what are your plans going forward?
Yeah, you're correct. And in the first phase, actually, my recommendation has been no buffet, but we're going to control the seating for lunch and try to, because to do the numbers we do at lunchtime without the buffet, honestly, I'm not sure the kitchen is something that can even happen. But I think with the removal of tables and having so many seatings in the first phase, I think we can manage through it. Second phase worries me when we start having people coming back and if things ease up and golf and tennis, everything, the pool's back open. So I think it's more like Rob said, and I know, James, when we were at Westchester, we did a lot of dining rounds. We were probably ahead of the curve in doing that stuff before people knew what they were. So a lot of action stations, a lot of people handing food with the safety. We have full SOPs because we were still doing buffets up to probably the end of March, but very safely guarded, members not touching food, everything being served. So we're trying to come up with, again, plan A, plan B, plan C solutions so we can be proactive and find a way to handle the numbers or the volume, should that come upon us. Cookouts, we're looking at maybe doing a lot of outside venues because from what we understand, it's safer to do the outside venues and do that social distancing. It's different when you're outside, especially Florida. Today I think it's 86, 90 degrees. So we're going to look at maybe some more outside opportunities. But again, we're looking at everything in 3 phases. Mother's Day is going to be a big challenge because because that used to be a huge brunch buffet for us. 600-700 people in the course of the day, and our downstairs restaurant did another 300. So if this continues, because I don't know if we'll even be partially open at that time, we'll probably handle it as we did Passover and come up with we've come up with 2 Mother's Day packages I've been working on already, home delivery or valet pickup. For Passover, we did over 900 dinners. So we're getting ready to do the same because we don't see us being able, especially in phase 1, to have that amount of people in a place and the contact. So a lot's going to depend on what happens with mandates with the state. That drives a lot of what we can and will do. But again, we're having a lot of meetings, getting prepared for everything. We already got the food outlined, and how we've done it is I've done a phase 1, 2, and 3, and each one has SOPs to get ready.
Yeah, is family style an option? I hear some people talking about going to more of a family style menu.
Family style for us means serving. So it's more of a French and Russian service, handing them plates and passing, not so much. And I think even that, you have to look again, contact of plates and serviceware. So I don't think true family style of putting in here, everybody passes around, would be something we would even look at. It'd be more of waiters with their gloves, the tongs, and doing it that way. More of a French or Russian style service, again, to keep that safety, especially in the beginning. I think until this is clear, until this is finally over, I think clubs, especially, in my member demographic too, we have a good age demographic here as well that, the disease, of course, would be more harmful. We have to take every precaution. So we're looking at going into next season as a very different season for us and with some challenges, but if we plan properly and get ahead of it, like Rob said, we have SOPs being done for every kind of issue. Sanitation, how we're cleaning things, how we're working, which we kind of did that mode anyway. And I think that's why we were successful even when it first came out. We were still able to keep up with everything, do everything, because we've always had those procedures of wiping, changing utensils. We've just increased it more, and we're a little more aware. And I think the hourly team members have a lot more awareness, which helps. And we just keep guiding it. But I think the best thing is control and restrictions. They're going to have to do that, and it's hard in a member club because it's their club. And but if we take out half the seats of the dining room, we do 3 seatings, 50 each seat. We're going to do everything on our part to make sure it's safe and know that we're looking out for that. We're here to serve. We're here for that hospitality, but at the same time, we have a very big obligation to keep everything safe when it comes to the food service end.
Makes sense. Rob, do you see any permanent changes that you're going to make to your culinary program as a result of this? I realize, we talk about phase in, but do you think that that's going to have effect upon club menus going forward? Was it an opportunity, for example, to reduce menu sizes and make them more practical for most clubs?
Yeah, I do. And until things in line, some normalcy here, and again, I think we're all habitual, and I feel like only times to bring things back in line to the way they may have used to been with some tighter controls. I'd like to touch on something I don't think that we really mentioned yet, but we do have maybe I did a bit, but we do have a very high level of concern for safety and sanitation at the club. I think much higher than many, and we have a log system to log time and temperature control and really keep that food safety concern at the forefront of our production. And my recommendation would be to look at consulting firms for safety and sanitation, food safety, food service management, and so on, creating some HACCP plans for our operation that can help control the different aspects of food preparation and service, not just for time and temperature and foodborne illness, but for outbreaks such as these. I think a lot of individuals were caught off guard, and I know Ed actually did say earlier that they have some really high standards at Polo Club, and that may have helped them and benefited them in the onset of all of this and controlling any types of outbreaks. I think we're very similar in that nature, but I think there's still a lot more to be done and a lot more consideration to put in that area. And one of my recommendations would be to bring in a safety and sanitation consultant to the club to help us develop some more systems, do some training, build some better awareness. I mean, we have sanitation timers that are ongoing in the kitchen every hour. You know, we stop what we do. We clean we sanitize the stainless steel table and regroup and reorganize. And I think that's very helpful, but I think there's a lot more we can do. And bringing in a professional with some knowledge base in that area could benefit the club and our operation to, if anything, just build awareness within the team. I think not just culinary, but also on the management, front of the house management side for food service. Bringing the interns into this, bringing the food and beverage managers into this, bringing our clubhouse manager, and get everybody on board on different strategies that we can implement to control this. So that's one of my main focuses right now is pushing for that and make sure that we're looking at all the different resources available to us.
Thank you. Any other major challenges you see in terms of the clubs in general just reopening and moving forward? We talked about obviously the labor situation, sanitation, a little bit about the menus. Any other things that keep you up at night?
Right now, lots of things keep me up at night. It's very, very difficult to anticipate what's going to happen. Our club typically wouldn't open until September. Our city club wouldn't open until September anyway. And when the decision was made to put a stop to all food and beverage or services, really member services at the club, at least through June and now extended really into September, we have some time to prepare. And we're going to use that time wisely. And like I said earlier, we're going to transition. We consider staffing hopefully will not be an issue, but could be. Again, it's trying to anticipate the challenges that are ahead of us. But I think if we do our due diligence and we consider awareness for safety, sanitation, and I think most importantly too is spreading that message to our member. How are we going to communicate what it is that we're doing? Sure, through some of our committees, and I'm sure that's what a lot of clubs are going to do, filter it down through committees, starting at the board level, and the department heads making the recommendations for their departments, but getting that out to our membership. How do we do that to ensure that they know that we're taking the right steps going forward to, again, ensure their safety when they're here in the club? Anticipating member usage is going to be, I think, a huge challenge for us until things kind of get back to normal and we start seeing the same numbers coming in and out of the club. Again, I use that word habitual, but I mean, we're in our homes here for the last couple months, maybe a little bit longer. People might actually start enjoying that. Who knows? We hope not. We hope they're going to come back and miss the club and use the club like they did before. But I think there'll be a curve there.
Thanks. So, a lot of great points, especially the communication situation, your communication with your staffing, communication with your members, because we've got to keep them engaged, and I think everybody agrees what they're doing, and to tell them what you're doing is one way of actually helping them, and certainly to let them know about the sanitary positions or actions that you've taken, so that they know that this really is the safest place to go, and certainly above all the other restaurants where they really don't know what's going on behind the scenes, and how involved management is in actually that operation. So Ed, how do you see things changing, if at all, in the future for your club or clubs in general as a result of this long term, 30,000 feet?
I'm hoping, to be honest with you, that there's a lot of lessons learned here. And I agree with Rob. I think many operations hopefully are taking a hard look at this and how they do business, maybe redoing business, because the sanitation and health, I think we take for granted a lot of times. We don't realize that we can get people sick when we don't serve good food, control points. I'm fortunate. I'm HACCP certified. So when I really studied HACCP and the critical control points, and you can see how many things can go wrong in the course of just receiving to delivery, it's amazing, and you really have to focus on it. My biggest concern is like anything in life. It's like a new religion. This has happened. Everybody's eyes are opening and aware. Should it go away or flatten and become comfortable and things go back to a normal, people forget. So what I'm stressing, and I'm telling my team that during the fall too, we're going to have various meetings, take all the lessons we've learned from this, even from systems, because we've had to like Saturday night, 480 dinners went out of one kitchen. We did some specials. Streamline the packing system, the delivery system to meet the flow, to get it upstairs quick enough. So I think we've spent a lot of time now learning delivery systems and maybe how we can do a better job in delivery. So I'm looking at everything we've done from this point, that they're lessons learned that now become the norm. That increase in sanitation, the increase in using wipes or different things that we've used to sanitize counters, switch out the tools more often, will become norm in our SOPs. I think everybody is going to have a tenacity about them that this never goes away. And you can see now, you watch the news, people protesting shutdowns. People want to get back to things. People think it is what it is. We're fine, and that's going to be our challenge. I think even with members, I think members want going to want to come back to the club, be everywhere, use everything. And if it goes away and the press says, "Oh, everything's great," or it's totally flattened, how do we control that? And I think communication, keep reminding people what happened, because we don't want to end up where we were or have it even worse. Because I think if there is a big resurgence and people don't listen and things go a whole different direction, it could be far worse than where we're at. So my job as the leader of the team and front of house, I think management and the board, is to really educate members, keep the tenacity going of everything that we've gone through, and let's not forget this ever happened, because people can get too comfortable, forget things, and just go back to a normal that can cause issues. So I think that's going to be the strength in people, is to have new SOPs, realize what you did, take everything you learned, institute it as part of normal operating procedures, and just go forward with caution, but never forget, where this whole thing came from and what we went through. I think that's important.
Definitely, and pick your brains. The cows go home, and I wish we had a lot more time. We still have some. I don't know if Dan, you had any questions of them that you'd like to know, or gentlemen, whether yourselves, are there any other points that you'd like to make in the next few minutes before we wrap this up?
Guys, anything first before I ask you a question or two?
No.
So you can't ask two master chefs this question. What do you see in the future for restaurants? What restaurant concepts are going to survive? What restaurant concepts are going to thrive? What are going to go away? And how will that download to our industry? It feels like, as futurists, as master chefs, you should have a vision of how this is going to reshape how we eat, how we dine, how we think about food. Any off the cuff thoughts there?
Well, I've been doing a lot of reading online these days, and it's pretty scary. As Ed mentioned earlier, some of his colleagues up north in the northeast are having some challenges. Small boutique restaurants that aren't mainstream are in business for 20, 25, 30 years, maybe bringing in $1.5, $2 million a year. They can't pay their bills right now. They're going to go away. It's unfortunate. It's very unfortunate. And then there's going to be a saturation of staff, qualified staff in the workforce that may not be able to find jobs. We may be in a completely different situation than we were last year, especially in the metro area here in San Francisco. As you know, it's a very challenging city to work in, and it's saturated market. And of course, with all the tech companies bringing an imbalance to the economic situation in San Francisco, we may see all of that changing. I also think that moving forward, new plans for a rebirth in our in our field in some way could be good. larger spaces for, more distancing. Larger workspaces would be great. I mean, we all know what happens in the design of a kitchen. The kitchen gets it's 10% or 12% of the total square footage, and the rest is used for gross income. So that could change a little bit. There could be a swing in new ways to protect ourselves from biological or viral infections. UV lighting, different levels of enhanced levels of sanitizers, getting rid of the iodine or the quad or chlorine. Maybe there's something else out there. I don't know yet, but I'm anticipating some changes happening in those areas as well.
Mm-hmm.
So if I could jump,
Rob, there's an enigma. The small restaurant owner is part of the fabric of America. It's part of how we live, and we go to the corner restaurant. And I don't think anyone on this call or video or anyone in our industry wants to default to a chain restaurant, a number of chain restaurants dominating our world, because it's not who we are necessarily, but are only those kinds of environments going to be able to live with the higher standards that both of you gentlemen are talking about. It's really concerning.
Yeah, I'd like to make sure that we don't find ourselves living in our own bubble here, and sometimes, such as Ed's club or our club, and there's a number of clubs out there, as we all know, top tier clubs that can withstand the financial difficulties that are ahead or that have come upon us because of this, and moving forward. Implement changes that are necessary, whereas the small mom and pop restaurant, the 20-seater, they're just not going to financially be able to do it if they can even survive through this to begin with. So that's a main concern for all of us. And I'd hope that doesn't happen, but I see it happening already.
Yeah.
You both are living in a real esoteric world, the best of the best. Our concern as a team, as a group, as an industry is the middle to the bottom side of that bell curve, where clubs don't have the resources financially or talent-wise to potentially rise to this occasion. It's another further dampening of the private club industry, I'm afraid. Ed, you were going to say something?
Yeah, no, and I agree with Rob. It is, those small restaurants, the ones we've come to know in every city you visit, and that is the fabric. It's not the chains. And I think Rob's right. Unfortunately, some of them are going to be able to make it through this. But for every tragedy, there's opportunity as well. And I think some regrowth will happen in time, and because there's going to be, landlords are going to have empty spaces. They're going to have leases that they want signed. They want their income. So perhaps there's opportunity for somebody to come in and revive it and take it over or do something. So I think it's a mix, but I think the industry on a whole is, and I know Chef Resiliency and all the writings I've been seeing and reading, but I'm with Rob. It's not going to be as easy. And I'm with you too. There's smaller clubs that didn't have the talent or leadership to go through this. They don't have maybe the financial needs. I think it's going to be a very challenging year. As Rob said, we could have more labor than we're used to, especially San Francisco. I know, when I was with the Cordon Bleu, we kind of put a pipeline to restaurants. And as Rob said, after it closed, they have so much trouble getting labor. I think labor might be out there because places are going to close. Some even chains, I think, are going to look hard at the shops that maybe didn't make the profit margins on the money and call it a day. But I think as a group in an industry, we all need to work together. And I know we're club centric and we worry about that, but I've been fortunate to work on all facets of the industry, and I worry about the whole thing because a whole is what makes us. And I look at my fellow club chefs. I know one chef, he's down to himself, a sous chef, and a dishwasher, and they're still providing, but they had to get rid of everybody else. And will those people come back? Will they be able to reopen under normal circumstances? So I do think we have a lot more challenges than people think. But I think if people work together and have some synergy, and especially the club industry, we're there for people, and companies like yours and these kind of podcasts can give the ones that don't have maybe the resources or that talent level, some insight. And I think everything you read, everything you listen to at least causes you to think, and if you can at least cause to think and then have a program and react or find a solution, you're going to be in a better place than you were prior.
Okay, good.
So, Ed, Dan, if I might ask a question. And I'm hearing, and Rob both, that because of all this sanitation, social spacing, and all those considerations, we may end up with needing more labor on our dining rooms and in our kitchens than we had before the crisis. In planning, is that something that you think clubs should be considering? Or is it something that should be able to be mitigated because with technology or whatever? Whatever, I'd like your opinions on that, if you have one.
Yeah, I think there are a lot of clubs that might be in between having, let's say, a purchasing department. A lot of chefs do purchasing at kind of small, mid-range clubs. Only the higher clubs with higher gross really have purchasing departments. But that purchasing department, that's part of that 5-step plan that I talked about earlier. And when you purchase and receive food, that's food coming, that's packaging material coming into your property. That is I think one of the largest exposures that we have to something like this. And how do you control that? Excuse me. But I think if clubs are investing maybe in their own containers that are going to vendors, and they can be cleaned and sterilized and packed and then brought into the company, unloaded into clean, sterilized containers and stored in your facility, and then kind of going through that, that purchasing and receiving department. I think that's a real big piece. And to your point, Bob, that is an area where we may need to grow a little bit. We may need to increase our staffing levels, our resources, to make sure that we meet those demands to control this sort of thing. So that's one area that I feel that if you're a club out there in the industry and you have some concerns about exposure, that's one of the first phases here is bringing foods into your institute. So one area there for sure, cleaning and sanitizing the work area, not just behind the scenes in the kitchen, but in the front, high traffic member areas should be constantly sanitized, and that's something that clubs don't do. So I think you're spot on there in saying that we may have to increase our resources.
Ed, what do you think?
I think the first phase, maybe not so much because, even us, so our internationals are gone. So front of the house staff now is a whole different level. But when we look at restricted seating, restricted venues being open, I think there's enough labor. But I think if things come back to some normal, I think front of the house especially is going to have to look at staffing up because, as Rob said, I think when I look at culinary team wise, not sure I need anybody extra. We've been doing those things. It's been part of our practice. But I think front of the house, from maybe handling less tables, maybe serving the bread service instead of having the bread on the table, maybe looking at things that there's less contact with. I think they're going to have to really look strong and say, how many more people do we need to keep this thing going? Stewarding, everybody forgets about the stewards, but the stewards are implemented. They are so important to your operation, how they handle things. Is the dish machine really running at the right temperatures? Are they storing properly? And are they cleaning properly at night to make sure all that can happen? Purchasing, again, is a thing. We brought more Lexan containers. Stuff comes off the truck, we're dumping into the Lexan, then bringing it inside. So some of those things will increase costs. I think to be vigilant, be safe, and try to put these new practices into place, there has to be some costs implemented. And I think that's going to be a challenge too, because of course some are going to want extra costs at this time, or because of the loss, and we're just going to try to reduce costs. But I think to keep safe and carry on, if this thing keeps going, you have to have some kind of investment.
The one upside, gentlemen, is that each of us have had to manage up over our business lives to boards, committees, other senior management people. This is going to be a turning point, a very positive one, where boards will be extremely empathetic to where the average club can now deliver the standard, be required to deliver the standards that you both implicitly understand and have the resources to deliver. And frankly, going forward, it could be a differentiator of why people would want to join clubs. Boy, there's a higher standard at my club in terms of sanitation, care, thoughtfulness. Because I'm a member, I can enjoy that versus go down the street to the local restaurant. And I certainly love the local restaurant concept. I don't want it to go away. It's part of the individualness of America. But I'm thinking this is a huge opportunity for our boards in member-owned clubs and even developer clubs to have a lot more empathy and be able to leverage that concept going forward.
So I certainly respect all of your time. I appreciate the time you've given us. We could go on forever, as I mentioned earlier, but we should probably wrap it up. Chef Mancuso and Chef Leonard, thank you for your great insight. Thank you for great contribution to the culinary programs in many clubs that you've touched and will continue to touch. And so thank you once again, and we hope that you have a healthy, safe remainder of this spring and summer season. So thanks, everyone.
Thank you.
Ed, thanks.
Thanks, guys. Anyone that's viewing this webinar, you'll find it ultimately on YouTube as well. In the footer, any questions for our master chefs or anybody on the team, deliver those to info@DENEHYCTP.com. We'll get back to you in one of the multiple venues that we use in terms of communication. Look forward to our next series of club chats. And thanks, everybody.